Hey everybody, it is Schmo Daddy 2, and I feel like a jackass because I just did all the answers for King Joe's contest on the camera. I thought I hit record and I talked for 10 minutes, and apparently I didn't actually hit the actual button, so here I go again. I'm going to redo it. Alright, so this is for King Joe's contest. Finally getting it done. Hopefully it's be last minute if I'm lucky if this uploads in time. If not, I did it for fun, so... what got me into collecting? Well, I have to say, being a young child growing up and seeing my dad's comic books, he wasn't a real huge collector, but he did subscribe to all these books for years, and so I'd sneak up to the attic and dig through his old comic books. I remember specifically he would have a subscription to like John Byrne's Fantastic Four, so I love that. So even now I read those books, and he had a couple books. He has a lot of gold keys from the 60s, and that's kind of what got me in. And then here recently, well, actually what happened is during high school I kind of lost interest in really collecting, and I mean as a child I collected. I would buy them with my money, and probably in my college years, about maybe almost 10 years ago, I started dabbling in comic books. I was still into baseball cards on occasion, and I would buy some on eBay, but I'd say about 5 years ago is when the bug kind of hit me for real, where I really got into books. I started buying heavy key books. Like I actually had an X-Men #1 I bought on eBay, and I ended up selling it, which was stupid. Couple other big books I got, and then I started really getting into it. Silver Age, I started getting into Strange Tales, and I think eBay and just being addicted to collecting comic books kind of got me back into it. So, what are my favorite superheroes? I would have to say my favorite group would be Marvel Comics, and I'm huge into Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. I got into Doctor Strange after collecting Strange Tales. I loved Ditko's work on the character, and I just really got into it recently. I'm into Charlton books, you know, all kinds of stuff. So superhero-wise, you know, you name it. I'm not as much into DC. I do love Batman, Superman, but I'm not like going after those as much. Favorite sports teams? Well, being from Indiana, I have to say the Indianapolis Colts were one of my favorite football team. But they lost Peyton Manning. They ended up letting him go, and I started following the Broncos also. You know, I still follow the Colts, but I'm not as much a fan as I was because I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. So. As far as baseball goes, we're talking the Chicago Cubs. Huge baseball fan. You know, the Cubs are kind of struggling here and there, but I still love to watch them play. I used to like the Yankees when I was growing up, but I didn't know, you know, it's the best team money could buy. You know, I love the heritage of the Yankees, and there's so many great players. Like, I still follow them because I like Ichiro Suzuki. I was following him in the 80s big time because Don Mattingly is from my local area. Huge Don Mattingly fan, so of course he's the manager of the Dodgers now. Favorite toy from when I was a child? Some of the stuff I remember specifically would be like, I collected the toys called Mask, and I collected G.I. Joe. So I remember getting for Christmas this really awesome like G.I. Joe helicopter, and I was so proud of it. It was real expensive at the time. My dad got it for me. He probably sold some baseball cards or something to get it, and I don't remember what model it was or anything, but I just remember it being badass, and I loved it. I think I tore it up. But, favorite movie props? Well, I have to say I would say the Rosebud sled from Citizen Kane, or the monolith from 2001: Space Odyssey. To me, those are iconic for my two favorite movies. So those would be my favorite movie props. Favorite TV shows? Well, I'm heavily into 1960s TV. I would say I like the original Star Trek series. I like The Twilight Zone. I like Outer Limits. If I was to go, those are stuff I watch a lot. You know, I also like The Simpsons, you know, from more modern era. I used to be into the 6 Feet Under show that was on HBO. This is years ago, of course. More modern shows. I kind of followed True Blood for a while. Kind of got lost the last couple seasons I've been watching, and my wife swears by it, but I couldn't stand the last season. I thought it was terrible, but some people could argue and say, oh, it was great, but whatever. She also swears by the Sookie Stackhouse Chronicles. I haven't read those yet, but someday I will. Let's see, what else? Favorite movie? Well, I just said Citizen Kane is probably one of my favorite movies. So is 2001: Space Odyssey. I like movies like The Shawshank Redemption. I'm trying to think. There's so many movies. I mean, I've got them everywhere, but those are just some of the main ones I really like. I could go on and on. Let's see, what are we at now? What's the funniest thing that ever happened to me? Well, at the time it wasn't funny, but when I first moved to Bloomington, Indiana, I decided to get as loaded as possible and go to bars, and I got really drunk and blacked out, and I ended up getting a public intoxication. It wasn't funny at the time, but it was very funny when going to jail, or not going to jail, but going to spend the night in a drunk tank with a bunch of idiots. Some guy's like, oh man, I'll get you out, dude, I swear, I'm gonna call my dad and won't get you out. I'm like, okay, you're gonna get me out, great, go ahead. I just remember that being a pretty bad night, but when you look back on it, it was funny because I deserved to go get my public intox, so. You know, I know it's kind of controversial there, but I used to be a heavy drinker, but not so much anymore. But yeah, thank you, King Joe, for this contest. I hope I get this uploaded in time, and I thank you so much for your videos. You are the king when it comes to unboxing videos, man. You're always getting packages. Wow. So thanks again, and everybody subscribe to King Joe, and thank you for this contest, and I hope these answers suffice. Everyone, later.